Welcome here. I'm pretty excited to have you, all of you guys. So, welcome to International. Today we have a special guest as always, but he's not going to be our last guest. So, I hope you're pretty excited as myself to have him here. But first of all, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Yasmina Gonzalez Müller. I'm intellectual property lawyer. But of course, you're not here to talk about law. You're here to learn from esports. So, please welcome our amazing guest, Daniel. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you, Yasmina. Thank you for the invite, and welcome to the stream, everyone. And hopefully, over the next, whatever hours we have allocated, you will, at the very least, I promise, you'll hear some of the best successes and fails across the last 10 years of esports. So, yeah.
I'm pretty excited because I think we are going to learn a lot from you. But first of all, for those who doesn't know you, can you introduce a little bit about yourself in a nutshell? Who are you?
In a nutshell, I served recently as the senior content esports producer for Rogue. I've been involved in social media content and production in esports for the last 6 years. Before that, I was a writer/journalist for different publications, among others like SK Gaming and On Gamers. And just as most people involved in esports, I'm just a huge fan. I used to play a lot of games, and I hail from Bulgaria. Big fact. I love the country. So.
Actually, one of my best friends are from there, so it's really excited to know you. So in that area as well. But you have a huge profile. You have been doing a lot of things. So I think we will try to focus on those roles that you haven't. But first of all, I would like to ask you why you decided to get into the esports industry, and you play any games. So which one is your favorite esport game for all the times?
Okay, the esport game comes first because it's easy. There's one true love for me, even though it's not my most played game. It's Quake. The Quake series is something that taught me a lot of things. I used to play it in high school a lot. I used to go to tournaments locally in Bulgaria for ESL and stuff like that. So Quake is like by far and away nothing comes even close. Remotely. In terms of the decision to go into esports, it was never a conscious decision. It was something that just simply was presented as an opportunity. I've always had a part-time simply because I've consumed so much esports content that I felt the need to contribute in a way. And, I saw certain areas where I could do stuff, which I thought, held value. And, fortunately others thought so as well. But the opportunity to join esports full-time presented itself in 2016, just as I was finishing university. So it wasn't a decision of, I want to do this, I'll do it. It was just like, okay, let's see where this goes. Also, I was a bit of a troublemaker at university, so that opportunity for a full-time salary was, I took it right away. Let's just say it like that.
I love it. And actually, you started writing articles, right? How was that experience for you? And how you decided to start to write this? Because, of course, you have to have an insight from there.
One thing about me is that I'm going to turn 30 in about, I think, a week. Yeah, just above a week. So I am old enough to know what the kind of the beginning of esports was, but not be part of the old boys club in a sense. But I am too old to be part of the current generation of, the trailblazers and, the modern day esports content producers and such. So I'm in a bit of a weird
You're in the middle, the best of the world force, you can say that.
So I started watching and consuming esports news around like 2004, 2006, somewhere like that. And back then it was a very different environment. Like you didn't have Reddit. What you used to do is certain websites were either multi-game or they specialize in a certain thing. So my morning routine before going to high school basically was open up SK Gaming and see what was there, going to HLTV for Counter-Strike, going to Fnatic.com, which at the time also used to be a news site. So the more I read, it's just, it's like guys following sports. You know who goes to what team, what they do, are they liked or disliked, are they a troublemaker, like a PR person. So at a certain point, I started writing for Bulgarian publications, and I thought that people just weren't given enough context. Like one of my first articles was actually Soas, the top laner currently who's playing in the LFL, transferring to Fnatic. And I was thinking, wow, this is insane. This guy's really good. And then the Bulgarian publication basically said, this guy just goes to this team. So I messaged the editor and I was like, I think I can do a better job than this. That didn't last for long. It was about a couple of months during the summer.
Okay.
And then I did what most newcomers in esports do. I emailed all the websites I used to read. So Fnatic, MyMYM, which is like Meet Your Makers, unfortunate, but like HLTV, all those people. And I emailed, the typical, I am 19, I know English, I have zero experience, please hire me. And no one replied, apart from SK Gaming. SK replied, and I spent the next 3 years doing video content for them, interviewing, being sent to events. Yeah, just attending
Yes,
IM
because
Katowice. And,
I think you went to so many events, right? You well to the CCGO, you LEC as well. I think you have been in a lot of them. I don't know if it was in this kind of job or it was because all the of your professional career. But how was this experience to go to all these events? And if you can tell me a little bit about each of them, if you can.
no, yeah.
We have time.
It was crazy. And one person I have to shout out, like over the course of me telling the career, I'm gonna give shout outs to certain people because uh, a lot of people like to attribute success to personal skill and stuff like that, but I'm the luckiest bastard alive. It's so simple. And one of the people is Irena Pencheva, who's currently, I think she's head of social media, but she also served as editor in chief for about 10 years in SK, and she's still in there.
Wow.
She's part of the content duo right now with Lara Launardi. I hope I'm not mispronouncing that. Just big shout out to her. And she actually messaged me. I was playing a game of League of Legends, and she was like, "Okay, would you like to start a trial?" And funnily enough, the moment I started my trial was when Shox was still editor in chief, and Irena was the head of the League of Legends division. And Shox basically told the big chat, like, this is a week after I joined. She was like, "Hey guys, I can't tell you much, but I'm going to be part of something bigger." And like 2 weeks later, she goes and enjoys like the LEC, well, ULCS back then. So that was incredible. And actually, the reason why I was sent to these events instead of, for example, someone closer to the German office, because throughout all this time, I'm at university. I studied mathematics in the UK, and it was a parallel thing where university was kind of the thing that was prime my brain a little bit, because you need to put a lot of effort and things like this.
Yes.
And I just looked to gaming as like an exhaust event of some sort with a couple of friends. I was actually a hardcore StarCraft guy, but nobody plays StarCraft at university. Everybody played League of Legends, so I had to switch. And it just everything came really naturally. When you know certain things, I've always approached content creation, even nowadays, from the perspective of what do I want to know, what do I think is cool. I don't try to appease certain groups, even though it's very easy to pinpoint and identify on Reddit, what did they want to see or who they want to see. But what I found out is that if you do that, then there's only one of you, and if you manage to get that out there, then generally good comments follow. So that's what happened. I've stole, good artists borrow, great artists steal. Not that I'm a great artist, it's just that's how the saying goes. But I modeled my interviewing style and research after Thorin, Duncan Shields, who likes to do these long form interviews, and I just kind of emulated that. I copied a lot. And over time, like, I contributed to SK's channel. I went to IM Katowice, and I was interviewing people with an interpreter, like Spirit, who was back then just jungler.
Oh my god, that was the experience. Have you any anecdotes in relating with interpreter? Because I imagine for the language.
No, it was incredibly easy. It felt easy because it was Lil Susie actually, who's I think, I'm not sure what her current position is, but she's obviously a longtime esports contributor, one of the trailblazing women in esports. She used to do work for Cloud9, and Irene obviously knew her, so she was like, "Hey, we'd like to do these interviews. Would you like to help Daniel?" So Little Susie is a complete pro, so I was in great hands. It legitimately didn't feel like anything difficult. But in terms of funny anecdotes, I'd say I won't name names, but there's a very prominent interviewer who interviewed myself and Irena, who was accompanying me at the time as someone who to guide everything, because he thought he would go on a date with her if he did that. And throughout the interview, I was just taking pot shots at the guy 24/7. It was so hilarious. But just 2015 was a very different time. You need to understand. Like, it was crazy.
No,
But
it
in
was
terms of-
another way. Yes.
I was just gonna say, in terms of other events, earning that opportunity was the hard part, because initially I was just flown into the office. What happened was, I over time, over the 2 years I was in SK, I kind of became the person, like the go-to person for articles. And at one point, a game paid them to do, like, not a PR article, but can you please try this game out? Tell us what you think. And as a kid, I used to read all of these, PC Gamer and all those game review magazines. So I was like, oh, I could definitely do this. And I think SK got a good chunk of change for that. And they sent me a big PC. Like, I was mind blown, because I was playing on the laptop, as all the college students would, they would sympathize. And they flew me to Cologne. So I would do IM ESL 1 Cologne, actually, the major, which NIP won. And I saw that, I was like, oh, this is crazy. And at that event, basically, I talked to the owner of SK, and I just did an interview with him. for all the things I wanted to know, because SK gaming is a religion in Eastern Europe. Well, it used to be a religion in Eastern Europe. Everybody knows SK Spawn, everybody knows SK Vilden. Of course, the contrarian that I am, I was a Fnatic fanboy. But hey, we all make bad choices, right?
Oh my
And
god. Well,
then,
it's okay because my colleague actually is a huge fan of Fanatic, so I'm glad that she's not here right now.
listen, if you have Fnatic XPK building such a legacy, I don't blame her at all. But once that interview was done, I remember he called Irene and me and was like, "Can we send this guy to Berlin?" And she was like, "Can we send you?" And I was like, "Can you? I don't know. Please."
Cool.
Fun story. Okay, fun story time. This is the first time I ever visit the LEC studios once they moved to Berlin. So this is February 2015, and myself and the camera person Valery Kirov, we took a selfie just to send to everyone in the in the office chat and say, "Hey guys, we're fine. We landed. We're at the hotel. Everything is cool." And my cologne was shadowed on the table, and the owner Alex Müller from SK was like, "Why are you having alcohol in the picture?" And I was like,
no.
"Oh, no, guys, you don't understand." So basically, I have to show that it's actually my cologne. But yeah, it's small
Oh my
mishaps,
god.
nothing major. And yeah,
So
I
be
think
careful.
yeah, absolutely. At the same time, actually, when I was writing these things and putting that content out there, Thorin reached out to me, and at the time he was working at On Gamers, and basically he DM'd me and said, "We're looking for feature writers or just writers in general. Put in your resume to this email." And I was ecstatic because I'm a huge fan of his work, and for him to contact me, I was like, "Oh, holy crap! This is
She's
something."
huge.
So yeah, I wrote for On Gamers for about a year, and basically that's the connection to Level 99. Or the editor-in-chief called Andrea Machwich, and along with another person, Saad Sarvar, they co-founded, who I think Saad was biz dev for Fnatic at the time. He's part of the first selling Life of Legends, because you had TSM Legends and you had Life of Legends in Europe, right? Those were the two big content series at the time. I think he was involved in the first sponsorship in Europe of a YouTube series for a team. So when they co-founded Level 99, basically Andrea was like, "Oh, I think I have a guy for us." And yeah, that's how the transition from journalism to the agency began. But I think that's pretty much the stories of journalism, more or less. But I've never really, one thing I want to make clear is that I was never a journalist similar to something like Richard Lewis or Jacob Wolf. It's never something that attracted me. I've always been here from the pure sports angle. I want to know the cool stories, like the cool players. Just things like that. Not so much digging for industry corruption or roster moves and things like that. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just it never really drove me when it came to esports.
Okay, and you actually, once you passed this path, you actually have been working in an agency, right? How was that experience? If you can tell us a little bit more, and especially if there are people who would like to have the experience to try to see how it was for you and try to learn how is the work. Of course, later we will try to discuss team versus agency, but now a little bit about your career path.
Ooh, the agency was an absolutely crazy experience. I wouldn't recommend it for first timers at all, ever. It's just it's an incredibly demanding job, and the main differences between team and agency is that generally in agency you don't really get to pick your clients. So I had very clear strengths when it came to language. That's why I was put in social. Actually, funny story. Okay, we talk about failures, right? And one of the biggest fails is my first 3 months in 99 were a complete and utter failure. And they assigned me to a Ukrainian client, and I was very confused as to what exactly my purpose was on that client.
Oh no.
And after 2 months, I went to my manager, and I was like almost aghast. And I was like, "Listen, you need to understand, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know what my position is." And he said, "You're an account lead." And I countered with, "What is an account lead?" So you can imagine it was a big mess. Obviously, it's a startup, and it's a huge thing. But as my studies go by, and as I do this, I was just mind blown that, am I doing a bad job? Am I going to get fired? Like, what's going on? So, everybody goes through that phase a little bit. But then there was a bit of a restructuring, and they said, "Okay, your English is fine. You did writing. Congratulations. Now you're a social media person." So that's how I pretty much entered social media and to then content. But the agency side, just a crazy experience, really. It's you need a lot of flexibility and resourcefulness and grit, a lot of grit, because I didn't enjoy the work on all the clients. Sometimes an underrated aspect in esports is that you enter because you like it, but at a certain point it becomes a job, and that's fine. All of our hobbies sometimes turn to something profitable. But I enjoy watching League of Legends and I enjoy watching Quake, but I don't enjoy other esports games. And sometimes I had to dedicate my entire working day on those esports games, so it was really difficult. But the silver lining is that once you go through a trial by fire, absolutely nothing can surprise you in esports outside of crime and corruption. Legitimately, nothing else can surprise
Okay.
you. And I had to, I was given OG Dota 2, the most storied brand in the history of the game, and I'm a League of Legends guy. Obviously, I'm from Eastern Europe. I know how to play Dota. It's in our blood. Don't ask. But that's how I started with MOBAs. But yeah, it's just I went through their first TI winning season, and over the year, I had to take in as much Dota 2 knowledge as possible, play the game, and all of it was non-negotiable. I didn't have a choice in the matter. Yes, now you're doing Dota 2. Oh, okay, now you're doing Overwatch, and it's like, oh, come on, man, I want to focus on League, some things I like. So from that perspective, it's very demanding, but also in terms of pure resume, you extract a lot of value. Like the fact that you have done work over so many clients. Obviously, successful work. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I've also done television stations in the UK and many other clients. It's just, but as with any agency, it's a lot of stress, a lot of waking hours. At one point, I think we were
Okay.
pitching FIFA, and I got a call at 4 a.m. And you just get this call. It's like, you need to come to the office now. And I'm like, all right, okay, let's see, But yeah, only happened once. Just want to preface, it only happened once. So hey,
That's important because as a lawyer, I was thinking, oh my God, labor conditions, what's happening here? Oh my God.
Oh,
Are you okay? Are you feeling fine? Should I save you or something?
no, not at all. At the end of the day, and we'll get there, I think, later on when we talk about younger people coming into esports. But I think people should take a lot of power into their own hands, in the sense that they, at the end of the day, are masters of their own fate. But when we get there, nobody can make you do things you don't want to do. So, yeah, but the
Because we
agency,
have
pure chaos. Pure
Sure,
chaos.
cares. Okay, so and you passed from that agency and you passed to actually one of the biggest teams, and it's actually Ruka. And I'm really curious, how was that process? What encouraged you to decide to go there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an issue of the grass is always greener. So the main problem, we can probably transition into the difference between teams and the problems between, because we'll get there. But
Go, slow. We have time.
no worries. It's just too many stories to tell. Actually, it's crazy. With agencies, what you don't have and what you crave the most is access, right?
Okay.
And you work on all these clients, but you don't really have access to the team. All your ideas are vetted first through your account lead, then through their account lead or manager or whatever. And it's just you're hoping that some of the ideas stick. With a team, you go in and you're given a certain degree of freedom and access to players, to team, and even at certain times, if management is not up for the idea, but the players are, you can have that battle on both ends, right? And you have much more control isn't the right word. Let's say influence over what goes out. And you're a fan yourself. If you have a good idea, the fact that you're from an agency is almost I wouldn't say a downside, but how do you quantify that, right? If I have a great idea and they make 100,000 views from that idea, then our retainer goes up. So generally, teams have an interest in agencies doing well for them, but when the agencies are doing too well, will you continue paying them? Where is the trade-off? So that's where it becomes really murky territory. So I thought to myself, you know what? I can bypass all of this nonsense and just go to a team. And I was incredibly lucky. They were incredibly understanding because big shout outs, by the way, to the big boss on top, Anna Baumann, VP of Esports, incredible boss lady. You must have heard of her. She also a fellow lawyer. Big shout outs. I actually came down with COVID when my second interview. So it was a 3-interview process. The first one went okay. And then when the second one, I told her, hey, listen, I'm not feeling well. If there's another candidate, I understand. Go for him. This is May last year. And she was incredibly understanding. She waited for 3 weeks until I got better and came back.
Oh my God, they really like you, really.
I mean, big respect to them. They could have, it's completely understandable.
Yes.
Summer split is starting. And it was a three-stage interview process. I had to send a portfolio. I had to explain what my, what the pillars of my strategy were going to be, and the main pillar was going to be us celebrating everything that we achieve. Because certain times, if you don't take narrative into your hands, then other people will take the narrative into theirs, and sometimes the narrative isn't good. Let's just say it like that. And yeah, it was a really eye-opening experience. Also, shout out to a lot of other people in there. Hendrik, Fly, Prin, a lot of people who took care of me while I was in Berlin.
Okay.
And yeah, that was pretty much the decision. Just I wanted to have influence over what content was made. Not so much because I want to have my name on it, but just let's see what we can do with more trial and error, which will never be allowed to an agency.
It's very interesting for me because I always saw that we don't have the opportunity to actually interview someone from the agency, so it's nice to see how strict you were actually, because I always see like so creative in a team. Of course, sometimes when we are talking about partnerships, they have to adapt according to the brand and the other brand of the team, and they have to see something that is mutual beneficial for both of them. So I will love later to talk about this discussion, but I would like to know more about your role in this team, because how was you were actually content producer, or maybe mistaken?
So no, it was a senior sports content producer. So basically, they have Rogue is part of a bigger entity called Break Global, which was recently purchased for a lot of money by a crypto company, if I'm not mistaken. Congratulations to the team, by the way. Big shout outs.
Congratulations from here.
So out of those entities, they have two teams. You have the Rogue brand, which contains teams for Rocket League, Rainbow Six, and League of Legends. And you have the London Rogue Ravens, which is a brand under the Blizzard's umbrella of the Call of Duty League. Okay. So basically, I was in charge of the whole chain of point A to point B, from the inception of content to production and release. And that involved both internal processes and, for example, series about interviews and stuff like that, and also talking with accounts, with management, and with finance when sponsors such as LG or Autiful, the Chinese chair manufacturer, who also maybe wanted some media done their way, be it social media video or YouTube video and things like this. So basically, I had to be a jack of all trades throughout the whole process, create process, implement processes, liaise with both people on top in terms of accounts and management, people in my vicinity, such as video editors, graphic designers, team managers as well, because everything needs to be coordinated. I can't really disrupt the process.
Okay.
And then lastly, the players. The players are also a very key part in all of this. And generally, players don't want to do it. It is what it is. And at the end of the day, very few teams have cracked the formula of, hey, you player who probably don't have any acting skills, but you're generally a goofy character and an incredibly gifted individual inside the game, come and do this really goofy thing with me. And here I want to shout out, first of all, Alex, the team manager for Rogue, and Odoamne for allowing me to dress Odoamne as the Cupid for Valentine's Day. So yeah, it's a very long chain of things, but generally it's good. It's good to have a lot of responsibility, especially if you want to do stuff, because a lot of people want to have the good stuff but not the responsibility. But
I understand that, but it's quite interesting, because for example, we have here we interview someone from the content creator as well, from other teams, and I actually always ask him how was to work with the players, because as you said, normally they don't have acting skills, and it has to be really uncomfortable for them. I think they tell us an anecdote with G2 that one of the players were actually riding a horse, and he didn't know how to ride a horse at all, and for him he hate the horse, but you look at him in the camera and it was like, I looks amazing. And it's okay. I don't understand what happened, but I like it.
Yeah, it's a really difficult aspect, because you need to prove yourself to the players as well, because they know that they have like a commercial value that you want to take advantage of, for lack of a better word. And sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, there have been very annoying instances of, I don't want to do this, and it's like, oh, come on, man, please, like, don't be like that. You. Yeah, it's just like, it's not. I don't do this to make you feel bad. This is my job. You're preventing me from doing my job. But generally, players are understanding, and outside of very tough cases such as maybe an emotional loss or certain outside of game and outside of work circumstances, they're always up for the good stuff.
And if you can tell me a little bit of the advantages and disadvantages that you have appear when you are a content producer, what will you tell me?
Ooh. The advantages of working directly with the players. I think a lot of people coming into esports right now generally do it not so much because they're a fan of esports, the industry, but they're just fans of the people and the teams. You see this rise of Richard and Doran call it the esports ultra. I don't think we're at that stage yet, although you wouldn't guess it if you look at online comments. But it's like you see these very dedicated fan base of Fnatic, of G2, of K Corp, these like really big Koi in Spain with Ibai, South American organizations such as Loud, like incredible followings with very dedicated people, and they just want to be part of the movement. They want to be part of everything. They want to see the players. They want to, talk to the players, and it's just a very natural thing. With me, see, I don't want to be a contrarian and say I wasn't like that. Obviously, there was a degree of like, oh my god, it's Larson. He's coming in. He told me I have hands because I'm platinum.
You try to control yourself. I understand. I'm being a fangirl over there.
But it's just with me that kind of died really early on because it's not just the good stuff. What people don't think about generally is that you're gonna have run-ins with the players or the management. It's just there are a lot of frustrating facets, which all are just part of the job. Of course, it's nothing to cry about, but it's not the oh, we're all just buddies and it's awesome 24/7. So, but regardless, one of the advantages is close proximity. You get to be next to the players. You get to see everything live. One of the best things actually is just having a quiet lunch. Like management team, myself, video editor, graphic designer, we go to the scrim room. We're super quiet and we sit down and watch it on the big TV. And we're just like quietly eating lunch. And they're just like stomping a big team and stuff. And you just hear keyboard clicking. That was a great experience. The other thing is, I say talking, because given that I was in an agency for 6 years, the people I work for, I almost see them as the clients, right? So talking, for example, someone from management directly face to face. If I wanted to talk to Anna about a very serious payment, thing or circumstance, I can go and be like, hey, Anna, I need this. And it's just this direct line of communication was very, very cool. The third thing is you get to mentor people. I've always been a big fan of sharing knowledge because there's no point in shutting doors. And this isn't like, it's not like a virtue type of thing, but more like, hey, I think you could do this a little bit better. Let me tell you. And I've encountered so many young people with Rogue who were just open to it. They were just like, yeah, that's cool. Or no, you're a boomer. It always was a two-way street, right? So working with young people in the sense that new and hungry esports fans, because for me, like, what, Fnatic in LCS 2013 is like yesterday, but for them, they came in 2018. So for them, I'm a fossil. So, you have to, yeah, have your give and take. So
but don't be so bad about yourself for me saying a fossil. No. Come on. And actually, we have a comment here or someone who actually like you a lot. They were saying things like, you have a piece of sweetheart here.
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll get to the meat of the discussions, and then I'll get to the controversial opinions. Let's see. But thank you.
They still like you.
So for the negative sides, I'd say it's a negative of the entire esports industry. You do not have weekends. If you do have weekends, you're probably falling behind in the competition. Now, I want to make a very big disclaimer. I'm not advocating for grind culture or hustle culture or anything like that. It's just that you spend the 5 days from Monday to Friday preparing for what's going to happen on the weekend. And on the weekend, you also have coverage and all the other things. And I made it a point to stay together with my social media manager or the video person who they're using to cover the weekend matches. And also I've done it as a social media person myself for years at that point. And I know how grinding and annoying it can be. So, and it's kind of difficult. I was never used to taking, let's say, a Monday off or a Tuesday off. So you get to this point where generally your days aren't really heavy in terms of workload. Like you're not being overworked, but it is 7 days a week. So I'd say that's something people need to consider. Obviously, it varies from job to job. If you're the legal counsel of an esports team, maybe that doesn't work. But generally, I communicate much more with social media managers, video editors, graphic designers, whose job sometimes has to be 24/7, which is obviously a downside. The other thing is that there is very rarely, again, for the whole esports team, not generally for Rogue, but it could be attributed to that, and for Lennon as well, there is very rarely a clear path. Now, obviously the last 20 years have been an incredible innovation across the board in terms of labor, in terms of working from home. Careers are no longer linear, but esports, they're just flat out. It's a flat out labyrinth. Like one day you're a social media manager, then you're a team manager, and somehow then you're a CEO. How does that work? But
Yes.
it could also be a positive, by the way. I just think of it generally as a negative because there's very few people who can make that. They start a social media manager and they say, I'll be a CEO one day. And they truly become a CEO. That's a very rare case. The last thing I'd say is working in Berlin. I dislike Berlin for the internet primarily. I think it's a great city. It's a very lively city, and it's one of the few places where it truly feels like there's human character to it. But the internet and deliveries are awful. I dislike Berlin heavily, and you can't find a place. Oh,
Well,
for the love of
please,
me, it's a
in that
full-time
case,
job.
I can actually complain because I came from the Canary Islands, so you can imagine how it is for me. That even if I'm part of Spain, sometimes you have like a little advertisement to say, no, we don't send to Canary Islands. It's like, I'm part of Spain, please. What's happening here? Why you exclude me for everything? But now I would like to ask you just a last question in relation with the team. And
Mhm.
how was for you, your personal experience to work in a team as a Rook? And what you would think would be the main needs for this team? And I have some comment here from Lydia. They say they'll enjoy working with you, not for long enough, but at least they love you somehow.
Odie, like, I don't know if it's his Twitter nickname or Instagram, but Odie is an OG. It was one of the things in Rogue that also happened was I got to meet a lot of old school faces, which the modern esports fan might not be as familiar with, but to me, those people were like pillars within the industry, right? Obviously, Odie, like, no comment. Odie's like the person responsible for Dignitas and many, 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 many other things. Also, like, dabbled in Quake. We talked old school Quake with him, which was crazy for me. It was just insane. Cat Gun, then Kevin Naki from I was watching StarCraft 2 in university when he was commenting, and now he's the chief strategy officer for there, so I got to meet him as well. So
Okay.
all of these people, you got to draw a lot of experience and also hear the behind the scenes stories, which I absolutely loved. I gotta say my selfish reason for coming into esports is like I would just want to know what was the reason for that behind the scenes. And I gotta say, Odie is one of the spiciest conversation partners you can have when it comes to stories in esports, bar none. Bar absolutely none. What was
That's
the
good to
question
know
again?
that. Don't worry, the question was actually more the last one in relation with your career path. It's going to be about a little bit about Rook. How was for you for working there? If you can tell me how was the inside of that team, and
Yeah,
also if you can tell me what you think were the main names, because
yeah.
I think we have a conversation with all the persons who have been working in other teams, but I think each one has his personal brand. So I would love to know what was your insight for Rook.
Mhm. In terms of Rogue, now the biggest strength of Rogue by far is GMing and general. I call it admin. Admin is basically everything that's not game related. So coaches, game, and stuff like that. We leave them aside. Obviously, that's for the server. But in
Yes.
terms of admin, I think I've worked with the most professional finance, management, and especially account management people in this company, like bar none. Not that to say that 99 experience was bad. It simply was a lot of Wild West. While here, I had to not conform, but basically get used to a system which was very well-oiled machine. And like I said, Rogue is part of a much bigger, part of companies, and it's a very strict system as to what happens and what doesn't happen, or who you need to go to ask a certain action or favor, things like that. With that in mind, like obviously, Odie, Thomas, Anna made life really really easy. With them, Doug as well. Doug Parsons is an account manager there who I helped with LG. So that particular experience was an incredible strength of Rogue. Like if you want to be part of an organization which will have all the admin in place on time, everything will be on point. That's Rogue, bar none. Because you hear a lot of horror stories where someone wasn't paid on time, or like the account manager is also the team manager, and what the hell is happening? None of that in Rogue, absolutely none. The other thing was the other strength. Obviously, this is going to be a bit funny, but I got to experience the personal chef in the office as well. So there's a scheme where obviously the players come first, but also you get to also eat from Foxy's food. Big shout outs to Foxy, also a Bulgarian. that respect.
Graded.
And it was just great because you kind of get to feel as like part of the team. Obviously, you are an employee of the company, right? But there isn't really a special treatment between yourself and the players, at least when it comes to sustenance, yeah. In the third, I'd say the biggest positive. I think it's basically the multi-dimension aspect. I think it's one of the reasons why I did well in the interview as well, is because they were involved in games which were very different from one another, right? So you have League of Legends, you have Call of Duty, you have Rocket League, and you have Rainbow Six. So I had experience in a lot of other games. So switching between these and knowing how to approach each and every one came relatively very easy. And like I said, when you work for companies like this, outside of the obvious monetary value that you want to have for your time, it's about experience. It's about the successful projects you've been a part of. And Rogue offer a lot. In terms of needs, I think I don't think this is exclusive to Rogue, but there's very few resources allocated to content creation in general. Not because people underestimate or dislike content creation and things like that. It's simply because it's very difficult to find the right people, and it's very difficult to basically build this team more often than not on a budget. Because I think Rogue, G2, Fnatic, there are very special cases where there's good funding, there's like a vision for the future and things like this, but how do you explain this to other teams which may not possess the same resources, right? It feels like if the roster's on a shoestring budget, then what happens to everything else at the back, right?
Okay,
so that would be a big need. But I'd say in terms of specifically for Rogue, I think they have that. They generally have everyone they need. Because I've worked with the people at the company. It's not like they need graphic designers or video editors. I know the people there, they're really, really good. And I don't know if it's public yet. I think they've also hired someone from my position. But yeah, just I think they need luck. That's it. Just a tiny bit of luck and things will really fall into place. But also, one note I'd like to mention is generally, for example, teams like G2, like TSM, like Team Liquid, those are very VC pumped teams, and most of the content you see is just bankrolled really hard. And fans like to think that everyone starts at the same place, which is completely untrue.
No, it's not. Actually, it's not. I think they only see one side of the story, but they don't see all the effort that I have behind. And sometimes it's not so much that it's not, but it's luck. Sometimes it's luck.
And one thing that really annoyed me over the last couple of months was, actually, it was during the winter break. Reddit was very apprehensive because of the fact that we did not do a proper roster reveal video, and no one stopped to think about the fact that there were insane COVID restrictions in Berlin, and only two other teams of the entire league managed to do it. And the bigger reason, we had a Korean player. We had to figure out the visas and everything. We can't just do a roster reveal video with 4 players, but it was just, everyone was so unpleasant about it.
I think that sometimes internet is like a place where everything is hate, and sometimes there's love, but it's more often hate. And we are going to now to the discussions. We are going to give it a life to this situation, this conversation. Actually, there was someone asking about your cat. Where is Nikki?
Where's Nikki? Oh, I don't know. Sir Nicholas is somewhere around. He's been well fed right before the interview, so I don't think he'll be coming in and begging for treats soon. But if he does come, I do promise that the viewers will be able to see him in all his glory.
So please, and now we are going to go to discussion, because I would like to take the advantage that you have been working in an agency. I think it was level 99 that you were working on 6 years or something like that, and you also work in a team. So the first question that on the first topic that we're going to talk about is actually the main difference that you can observe in one side and the other, especially for those who would like to want maybe to work in one or another place, what they will discover if they go there.
Okay, so I'd say they have a lot of common parts. The biggest disconnect between agencies and teams is control over the main marketing aspect, and the main marketing aspect is the players. A team might pay an agency to produce creative, to do certain operations which the team, for one reason or another, is incapable of doing. But when it comes to direct control over the roster, and I'm not asking them, like, do this and do that, but in 6 years, no team allowed 99 to have direct roster access, bar very special exceptions such as roster announcement, brand announcement, things like this, like big events. Even with H2K, we spent 2 years with H2K, and we did a very successful YouTube channel for them, but we almost never had access to, maybe once a year for a day or something. So it's just impossible to get. I think that's the biggest difference. Everything else is, I'd say, teams are just a very one-dimensional agency, because teams also have clients as well. Obviously, we don't refer to them as clients; we refer to them as partners. The sponsors. A sponsor comes to you and says, "Okay, the EB Live team, World Champions League of Legends. We are, this phone company. We'd like to sponsor you." So it's basically the same relationship, right? I'd say this is the biggest difference, and generally where the crux comes off. And I'm gonna keep it real now. I've also seen these
Now
things
it's
where
a real time.
you have no idea. Sometimes the addition of an agency creates a confrontation within the team based on what this service is. So, for example, if the team has a head of social media, but the agency comes in to help with social media, then that person becomes that person is brought in to be like, okay, this is good, this is not good. But then you have a conflict of interest. What if the agency is better than that person, but he doesn't want to get fired? I've been in that situation with a creative director. I won't mention names, no teams, no games, but that creative director, we were just dumbfounded as to why certain ideas are being declined. And we ran multiple experiments showing that other teams are doing what we're suggesting, and they're having success, but this exact person is not doing these things. The moment we no longer work with a client, guess what happened? Not the exact ideas, but the same approach was implemented. And it's just it's part of human nature, and it's something that you need to be prepared for. One thing I would give as an advice to young people is, if you just like esports and you want to excel in one thing, for example, you really like Rogue's League of Legends team, like I do not join an agency. Don't. If you are passionate about social media, but it's not even about like, oh, you'll inconvenience your employers. You will have a very bad time, and maybe you'll draw conclusions. Maybe you yourself will close a door which you shouldn't close. Having a bad experience with something generally makes us avoid that thing, even though you might end up being good at it. So at the end of the day, if you just like social media and you like to participate in social media without caring what the exact channel you would like to manage, then sure, go for an agency. They will give you a plethora of experience. But if you just like Rogue the team, then definitely do go work for Rogue the team, because then you'll be part of that whole process. I think that would be
That's good to know. And I like it how you explain, because it's good for, especially for people that doesn't know what, they want to go to the industry, but they don't understand what kind of play or role they can play. So it's good to see all the two sides. And also, okay, if you can say that, for example, what kind of profile you think it will be much better for an agency, and what would be the better profile for our team? Maybe it's a really general question. I can narrow it if you like.
Okay, let's narrow it, and maybe I'll jump back.
Yeah, go. So, especially because, of course, you were explaining a little bit, and it was perfect. But I would like to see if you, as you said before, for example, if you like the team or you like this game, go to that. If you like social media, go this. Maybe it would be much better to see what kind of skill should a person have, to go one field or the other.
Generally, I think teams have a much lower barrier to entry. So if you're looking for an entry-level position, the two best things you can do is apply for a team with a bit of background. Obviously, you can't apply for head of social media without any experience, but if there are junior positions, you can always join, and you can always learn from someone who's more experienced than you, and contribute to the team's success, even if it's something as small as like a Discord community role. We saw recently with, I think it was the Fnatic Superfan, which generated all that discussion, but he joined G2 was like a community coordinator or something. So you can see how just your fandom and your passion turned into something that could potentially yield some sort of value down the line. So I'd say if you're looking for a junior position with not a defined skill set, go for that. In terms of an agency, I think agencies require experience. If you're already experienced in this, and you do have the knowledge, definitely with experience though. I just don't see going to an agency from a junior position. Yeah, I'd say agency is just a difficult part, not because you'll be doing something much more necessarily complex, but you will be given a much stricter day, and you'll be given a much wider diversity of clients. And I think, by the way, social media in esports is vastly different from social media in the commercial world. Like, we play the game on hard mode a lot. So yeah, there's just big differences.
That's great to know. Sorry, because I'm motorbike fast, and I don't know if the audience can see. I don't know so much. And now, okay, the next question. I would like to know all the gossips. I would like to know the battlefield between agencies and teams. You promised me blood, so go ahead and bring me blood here.
Oh man, blood.
Well, no massacre, please.
No massacres at all. It's just, well, one of the things was that just generally, you could have just this human conflict, which you can't avoid, and you don't want to bring it to, even if you do, generally you're not going to get a resolution. What are we supposed to, sacrifice our financial relationship just because you can't get along with a creative director? Like, come on. Sometimes you just have to swallow those defeats. It is what it is. Look, I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything bloodbath worthy, but I can give you all the biggest failures that I've had across each and every client.
I like it. Good enough.
Simply because on most of these shows you hear like about things which almost sound like mythical, like, oh, I just came and got like 500,000 followers and stuff, and there has to be something else, right? You can't just do it on the spot. And few people talk about failures, right? So on H2K we used to do a series that was called H to What, and at the end we just adopted a segment which was similar to Marvel movies, where we just put like a funny scene, faces of the players, and just a funny skit. We demonetized the channel simply because we were using copyrighted music, sometimes intended for humorous purposes, and once we used "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life." So generally, regardless, sometimes depending on the song that we use, it's blocked in certain countries, but it's never something to die for. It's like blocked in San Marino. Like, I feel for the San Marino people, but we'll pass through. And one day we released an H2What episode. It was a very, it was a well-watched series. It was really good. It had dedicated fans. People were asking, oh, when's the next episode coming out? And we release it, and then we just get like, 50 messages on Twitter like, I can't see it. And we're like,
oh no,
what's going on? Turns out that Always Look on the Bright Side of Life is blocked everywhere in the world on YouTube outside of Mongolia. So yeah, my bosses were not happy about that, I'll tell you that. What's next? OG Dota 2. Oh, amazing. With OG, the one is a near miss, the other is a failure. So one of the most cataclysmic things in the Dota 2 scene that year was that No Tail and Fly were no longer going to be in a team together, and they've been a duo for ages. They were known as for at least 5 years, and they gave me to write that statement, and I wrote it, I scheduled it, but again, as most social media managers will sympathize with, AM and PM for Europeans is not a strong suit. So it went out 9 hours earlier than it was supposed to, and I got a call at like 3 a.m. my time. They were like, what happened? And I was like, my fault, my bad guys, my bad. But it was fine. At the end of the day, obviously people are annoyed, but it's nothing you can do. It's just life. Mistakes happen. What else? Oh yeah, Vancouver Titans came up next. The Vancouver Titans are one of my favorite clients because one of the biggest successes there was that graphically and in terms of media, in terms of aesthetically beautiful things, we were the best team in the Overwatch League. It wasn't even close. People were copying us. They gave us awards for this. It was incredible, and I was blessed to work with top tier artists: Milica Popovic, Matej Machovic, Vladisenko on the editing side, incredible Igor Kovalenko, incredible artists and video editors. And one day, we got the Vancouver Titans had the Runaway team, which was a Korean team with a huge history, and they were stomping the league. They had 12-0, and I was thinking, hey, soon we're going to break the record. I should totally do a graphic about it, right? Obviously, we have the illustrations. It's going to be great. So I started doing the math, and I think, okay, victory number 13 is going to be the record. And I send my work to the main statistician of the Overwatch League via DM, Backpack Matt. not so shout outs to this guy. So I tell him, hey man, can you check this just to be sure so I can commission this? And he says, yeah, everything's cool, go for it. Well, my mistake was that I was counting just separate seasons. But it turns out the streak goes from season to season, right? So it wasn't 12-0, it was something like 15-0. And we win. I post the graphic, obviously like super triumphant copy, like the dominators of this thing. Oh man, we got destroyed on social. And obviously, even the owners are like, hey guys, I don't think we broke the record yet. I was like, so I go into the Titans account. Obviously, I delete, remove the post, issue an apology. Sorry guys, maybe in a week or two. And then the guy from the awards, he's like, oh, my bad. There was a mistake. And I was like, it was just meant to happen. It was meant to be. It was meant to be. On the subliners, I can't think of any big fail on the subliners. And honestly, I can't think of any big fails on Rogue.
That's good to know, actually. But actually, I hope that people learn from you and try to avoid the situation, because as you said, you cannot do something at that moment because, of course, it happens. But at least it's not going to give you twice the same mistake. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Actually, I had this conversation with a junior social media manager at Rogue, Jessie Cummings. Big shout outs to her. She was one of the people who was very wary of these types of fails. And I told her, like, if it's meant to happen, it will happen. It's inevitable. You will have a failed tweet. You will have something that is not well done. As long as you don't cost the team, in reputational damage, financially, or, a sponsor drops out, or you say something really, really bad, which none of the things you will ever do. It's like, it's fine. Just water under the bridge, learning experience, move on. It's fine. People have done worse.
That's true. People have been doing the worst, especially in the internet. So don't worry. I think it's fun in order to learn. And actually, now I will like to pass to what kind of tips you will give to people who would like to go inside the industry, because I think you have plenty of advice. What can you advise them? What you recommend them? And in order not to, any warnings that you would like to do as well?
There's two big things. I hope others also come around. The first one is, especially if you're creative, video editor, graphic designer, social media manager as well, don't listen to Twitter. Never listen to Twitter, because it will kill any type of critical thought in your head. You will never hear honest feedback on Twitter ever, because what tends to happen nowadays, and I think it's a function of a new generation coming up. It's not necessarily something that is just bad, but kind of everybody wants to be an influencer, and at the end of the day, you're not beholden to your Twitter audience. You do work for your employer and for yourself, and unfortunately your fans or your admirers on Twitter, or maybe even your, I don't know, friends, they're not good judges of what's good and what's not. And unfortunately, I've had this conflict a couple of times in my career, where it's hard to sway someone and explain that this isn't good enough, or you need to improve in this area. And it's always a difficult discussion, right? Nobody wants to hear that they need to put in more work, or what they presented isn't good enough. But a team needs to be held to a standard. The agency twice as much, but everything that you put on your socials needs to represent the best of what you have to offer. At least that's the way I see it, right? I never post a YouTube video which I think is bad or unedited or awful. I'd rather be fired than do it. Because you not only co-sign Rogue to it, well, in that case Rogue, but could have been H2K, but then I co-sign myself. And if it's subpar work, I'm sorry. Like, I'd rather not hurt anyone. And yeah, so the first thing is never listen to Twitter. You will never get honest feedback. Now, the other coin to this is that you rarely will get someone knowledgeable enough to have it, but Twitter is just a really poor source for that. It's never going to happen. And I see it on the daily. Like, these people are your friends. They're not going to tell you the truth, which makes them bad friends. But hey, this is a difficult
Yeah, I was
discussion.
thinking that as well.
The second thing is, be in control of your own career. Do not go into an esports job thinking that someone will protect you. And what I mean by that is, put forth goals, agree what your success metric is. Maybe your success metric is just chilling and gaining experience. If you're 19, don't put $1 million goal. Like, of course, obviously you want to have fun. I understand that, and I get it. But if you're 26, 27, making your first steps or thinking of changing industries, you need a goal, because you have to define success. That's the biggest part. Otherwise, at a certain point, the upward mobility of the job is really weird. Like, esports is like this. It's all over the place.
Actually, yes.
And
it is.
yeah, but it's difficult. It's difficult, and a lot of people don't do it because once you define success, you also define failure. If you don't reach your goal, then have I failed? What happened? A lot of the discussions that I've had in the last 18 to 24 months was about raises. Not specifically for myself, just younger people who in the industry came up and said, "Oh, how do you think I should go about it?" And I said, this is probably going to be the easiest discussion you'll ever have with your manager. And you just put forth your achievements, you put forth the goals that you set, and you say, I've achieved my goals. I think I deserve more, and I'm willing to take more responsibility to match the bump generally in payment. Very few cases just wanted a better title. And all of them couldn't understand the concept. They literally could not grasp the concept, because a lot of them nowadays believe that if they just do the job, then they deserve to be compensated more after a certain period. They don't necessarily tie the raise to more responsibility or a certain type of achievements. They don't commit to goals and things like this. And it creates a conflict. It creates a very dangerous conflict and a very bad precedent in certain places where staff think that they're exploited, but it becomes a discussion of, are they really? Like, what are the results that you're gaining? So that's why I say that if you put forth your goals and your best foot forward and say, hey, I'm a brand new social media manager. What I'm going to focus on is engagement. And by the end of the year, I will increase engagement by 3%. Now, what happens then? Let's say, what is the worst case scenario actually? The worst case scenario is that you do it and your manager is a horrible person who sees it and says, listen, no. Or the second least case scenario is that they're a good person to say, hey, I don't have the budget for you. Then it's a win. You set a goal and you achieved it, and you leave the place. That's it. I'll go somewhere else where I think I deserve that money or that title. And this approach just puts the entire power in your hands, because I've seen way too many people who just not necessarily blame others, but just start antagonizing their own employer when they have all the power. They have the power to say, hey, okay, you don't want to pay me this, given my performance and results, which we both agreed on, shook hands on it. Cool, I'm out. That's it. Simple. In terms of 99, for example, there's different reasons for leaving, right? And the reason I left was because I was kind of doing the same job, and I couldn't find a goal to go to my manager with and say, hey, this is where I see it, and this is where I'm going to get my raise. And if that happens, then I spent 6 years there. I like the place. It's time to go. So I just said, hey, I'm doing the same thing. I don't see how I can move up unless you want to quit, of course, but and you just move. So keep the power in your hands. Don't allow anyone else to tell you certain things, because sometimes you succeed that way. Sometimes you say, I'm going to leave, and you hold your employer hostage. Trust me, down the road that never ends well. So yeah, that's going to be the biggest advice. Keep your career, keep your achievements, keep everything in your own hands. Don't be afraid to set targets. Especially if you're young, do not be afraid to fail. Do not be afraid to do any of these things, because you're already miles ahead from people who, have done so. And the third one, a bit dark, but always be ready to jump outside of the esports industry. Because a lot of people, like, the dynamics of the esports industry are too quick for anyone to master. Like, today, it's these teams. If you told SK and Fnatic in 2008, primarily SK, that they would be a C-tier team 10, 15 years down the line, they'd laugh at you. Look what happens nowadays. If I tell G2 20 years down the line that they may not be the biggest org, or FaZe Clan, what would they say? They'd laugh at my face, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen. You never know, how things turn. So the esports industry is way too volatile at the moment, and frankly, probably has always been, for you to think that you will get in and you will be a lifer. The lifers are very rare, and they're very savvy people. Shout outs to Odie, still in chat. But just Odie has pivoted so many times across like CGS, across other titles. He's had to make so many sacrifices for brands like Dignitas to work. If you think you're smarter than Odie, go ahead. chances are probably not. So yeah.
That's so great, and I hope they write it down because it's quite important. And I like all the tips that you give in. It's really realistic, and I hope they learn from that. Especially if they don't watch it now, maybe later. But please take into account all this advice because I think it's quite useful. And sometimes, especially if you're young, you think you know, but sometimes you
I have a
know.
final one. I have a final one.
Go ahead for the
Network,
poor lads.
network like crazy, because nowadays a lot of it comes down to who you know, and it's not nepotism. It's just people like to work with other people that they like. Simple as that. So network like crazy, but never post stupid things on Twitter. Please, never. You may like this team, and if they're having a beef with another team's audience, just think of your career prospects. It's really hard. It's really hard. I know. And I come from a time where there wasn't really Twitter for you to know how stupid I was at the time. But yeah, sometimes I look at people who have a lot of prospect and I see them post something, and sometimes I DM and say, just please, man, please. I know you're striving to be hired by this, and this person. Like, just please delete this. Please, man. Please do it. So don't network. Have your LinkedIn up. Make yourself known at Twitter. Something I've failed really hard at. But just don't post stupid things, especially in an age where anything and everything will be used against you in court. So just
Yeah, and they confirm a lawyer as well. So please be careful with what you're saying, because you think you're clever, but sometimes words can be misleading. Sometimes, really.
A lot of social media managers know. So,
and we are almost on time, but I think we have time for at least 2 questions more because I would like to. So, please, of course, you tell me so Bloodborne, so cases that it was really funny, but can you tell me something that you are really, really proud of your work, that's something that you work for and you want to share here?
I'll go client by client, simply because it's just that's how I've compartmentalized things in my head. With H2K, is like what I'm proud of is not so much the results that we had, but the fact that I was in charge of the whole operation, like the whole creative social media and stuff. It was a 3-person team. Myself, a video editor and graphic designer, Michael Mackay, Vladimir Senko, big shout outs. I love him to death. We're the H2K crew. We have our own group. But just the fact that I had 0 experience and I was dropped and succeeded in that for about 2 years. Just that's the biggest success. And obviously I can say like H2 what, but I won't. And I'll say I got to call Freak bald on Twitter. Because the H2K persona was like a very, if I say that we were G2 before G2, it sounds kind of, I need to prove that statement, but we were the org that was like really out there bantering and stuff like that, because we were a year before G2, right? And when we were at Worlds in 2016, he made this like 4-line poem, and I was like, okay, worst case scenario, I can take a picture and show that I myself am not of a great hairline such as Freak, so no harm, no foul. And we did it, and my bosses were like, "You're playing with fire, but we love it. Go ahead, keep going, keep going."
Keep going.
With OG, it's like the best thing was that for the first time I had to pick up a new game. Obviously, I was familiar with Dota, but it's like I had to learn so much. So that, to me, that was the big success. And without revealing much, that account was severely compromised. And it was just that gif of like Childish Gambino walking into the room with the pizzas and there's fires everywhere. That's me entering the OG Dota 2 account at the time. So we managed to put out all the fires.
The graphic visual picture that you put in my head.
It was really good. The Vancouver Titans, the biggest success has to be the graphics and aesthetics, but also we were on Instagram, barring 1 or 2 teams, we were the highest engaged. So there's 2 types of teams in Overwatch. You have the legacy teams, which were there since 2018, and then the expansion teams. And we were part of the expansion teams. We were the highest engaged Instagram account from the expansion teams, and that's something I really, really, really take pride in, because Instagram, that was the first time where I was contractually asked to do Instagram. Previously I did it for fun, but now I had to be like, okay, I need to prove something. And the fact that we managed to succeed in that was huge. Subliners. Oof, what was it? I think it was the first time I launched a brand. Well, I was part of a huge team. Every time I say I, please read it as I was part of a huge team.
Read the subtitles here, please read into lines.
It was the first time that I was a part of launching a brand.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was just a very humbling experience, especially when you're coming into a scene which has such deep and strong roots as Call of Duty. Like, generally, I'm not a fan of Call of Duty fans. I think, yeah, I'm not a big fan of them. But the game itself and its history, I have very, very deep respect for, because it emulates the early days of European esports, where everything was an open tournament and everything was really cool. So seeing them transition to an LEC style, I was like, I know your pain, brothers. I know your pain. Um, and
I'm with that.
finally, NYXL. I broke. I managed to give an idea, which broke all their Instagram records. I don't know if the record still stands, but it was a non-boosted post, and it got like 1,000 comments. Yeah, it's just that's the thing, because I want to bet also off of that. So yeah, with Rogue.
There are actually a lot of them, so I'm really happy to hear all of this because, of course, you were telling me so much. No massacres, but at least some situations that, of course, we learn from them. But happy to hear all of this. And now the two last questions that I have, it's what are your plans for the future, at
Mhm.
least for 2020, 22. Sorry, I go back to the to the past right now. And if you can share something here on East Philippines, I think you can, because maybe you
Mhm.
have some projects that you cannot share right now, maybe in the future or the near current month. And how do you see or foresee the esports industry evolving in a couple of months?
Okay, the hot take. We'll leave the hot take for the end.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I
take a
like
break
the.
for 2022 is once I departed Rogue, it's just ever since I graduated in 2015, it's just been work after work after work, and I've never really taken a break ever. Like, I've never had an off day in terms of I'm taking an official off day, and obviously that's really bad. If you're out there
It
listening,
really
don't
is. It
do that.
is. I'm worried about you. Please
No,
have a
all good,
break.
all good. We're all good. Obviously it's a conscious choice. I'm not gonna be like, oh, it's someone else's fault, right? So until the end of 2022, I'm taking a break. I'm not going to be a part of any organization or anything big. Obviously, I'm not going to leave any cash flow standing around. So I'm just taking small projects. Currently, I can't really say much, but I'm working on a CSGO project, which celebrates the greatest plays ever done in a specific tournament. So yeah, hopefully in the next couple of months, it'll be out there. And yeah, but just taking a break, reevaluating where I stand, what's going to happen, and seeing where I should go to. Because I've been all over Europe, kind of. I've lived in Serbia, I've been in Bulgaria, I've been in Germany, I've been in England, and it's like, I think it's time. Obviously, esports boom. We're at 30. It's time to settle down somewhere and try to go for more stability than just an esports nomad being everywhere all over the place.
And now the last question: how you foresee the future? If you
Oh,
can tell me, not avoid the questions. Go ahead.
no, I don't think
But
it's good.
please, also, I will tell to the audience, I imagine that when the majority of them, they know you. But please, later follow him, because I follow him in Twitter, and I think he
Uh,
tells a lot of things. So please go ahead.
you
and
yeah, bad
and
takes
I'll
and
answer the question.
all right, all right.
Don't avoid it.
I don't think it's gonna go well. I don't think it's going well at all. And I think that the investment bubble of 2017 and 2018 is shrinking, and you could see that all over the place. You can see it with staff changes. So the grand majority of successful Call of Duty leagues, Overwatch League teams, and League of Legends teams had their generally creatives in social media, completely shifted. A lot of people left their like year-long jobs where you think they would ascend to positions, and they just went for another job. And I think there's a reason for that. Um, I think not all teams are equal at all, and sometimes you maybe see a team that has a crap ton of money, but that money dries up real quick. Wink, wink, checkout phase. But in general, I think esports and crypto right now is esports in 2014, 2015. That's how I see it. It's just a lot of processes that were supposed to be healthy were never healthy, because we never really got to that amount of money. And I'm going to give a very quick example. The best thing for a team to do with an agency is to bring the agency team in-house, to have agency people do stuff, because then you drop communication barriers. Everything is so clean and so easy. That retainer will be a killer. that never became a feasible retainer for any agency that I know. And current agencies, I'm not going to mention which, but the grand majority of them, what they do is they almost entirely hire freelancers now. There's almost no in-house people. Even though it's an agency, you pay premium for the name, but you're, yeah, they're not good signs. They're not good signs. And also, the product itself is very, very iffy. Now, the good part is that South America and just generally the Latin-speaking countries, Spanish-speaking countries primarily, and French as well, they're revolutionizing what it means to be an esports fan. And maybe the revolution will come from places that we don't really know what they are. For example, Koi, Loud. These people came and conquered spaces which teams have been a part of for decades. The Brazilian scene, incredibly strong. Middle East, North Africa. You never know when the next investment is going to come, but as it stands, I'm not particularly optimistic. That doesn't mean that there are not opportunities. Doesn't mean that it's going bad or it's going to die. It's just it's taken a step back, a noticeable step back. It won't fall, but it needs more nudge to go forward.
I like it because I think it's the first time that I have someone who answer me with a not a happy answer, but I like it. I like your honesty. I really appreciate it. But I think it's nice. It's nice, and somehow I feel the same. I feel like we actually hide all of this with all the pandemic, and we
Yeah.
didn't realize that we are using an excuse here. But we will see. Maybe this year will be one step behind, but maybe in the future we will
One
see
can
what
hope.
happens there. I hope so.
One can hope.
But thank you so much, Daniel, for being here, and thank you so much for all of you audience for being here and saying so much nicer things to Daniel. I really appreciate it. I'm sad that I didn't have the pleasure to meet Mr. Nicky, but it's okay. It
Sorry.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Don't worry, don't worry. I will bring you again so you can introduce me to your cat. And I will love to have you again, and please to know more of your projects, and I will please follow him in all social media. I will for certainly I will do it so. And also thank you so much, and I hope to see you
Thank
and
you.
cross my finger, and it has been really amazing to have you as my last guest.
Like I said before, we started saving the best for last, right? So
Exactly, I save you for the last. So thank you so
for the
much,
invite.
and now I will have to hide you for a moment, but please don't go, and I will say, and I close the program for today. Thank you so much. It has been really, really nice to have you all chatting, and I'm happy that you enjoy. So, see you in a few. Thank you so much, Dan, for president. So, thank you so much here for being here, for listening to all this conversation. Please follow him because he's an amazing person. It's really nice, and I hope you enjoy. And if you like our content, please follow up. And we have a lot of Esports Business Life, a lot of interviews for the long week. We are going to finish, but we will start in September again. And thank you so much for being here. And really, it has been really amazing to read all the comments. And especially, I wish I have the pleasure to meet the cat, but it didn't happen. But it's okay. And I hope you enjoy and have a nice night, because actually for me it's night, as you can see here. So see you all, guys. Thank you so much.